Hello and welcome to the Bhagavatam. There is something I want to talk about today that can make or break our lives. Something that is so powerful that if we don't pay attention to it, it can be the cause of our demise or our downfall, materially and spiritually. And that thing is called arrogance. Today I'm going to speak about spiritual arrogance. We generally become arrogant when we think that we are better. When we think that we are better than others. So let me start this again. Spiritual arrogance is going to be the theme for today. But arrogance is there in all of us to some degree. We generally become arrogant when we think that we are better than others. We might be smarter, more beautiful, more wealthy, more athletic. There can be a variety of reasons. When we are less smart, less beautiful, less wealthy than others, we may feel inferior and not good enough, or even unworthy. Our mind is constantly comparing, evaluating, and judging ourselves and others. But what happens when we are arrogant? See if you can connect with this. We tend to speak unkindly. We tend to be less compassionate. We tend to get angry and maybe even put others down. But if we are truly better than others, then why would we do that? Like really, why would someone who is better need to put someone else down? It doesn't make any sense. The truth is that both arrogance and low self-worth are mentally concocted stories. They're part of the defense mechanism of the ego. We think we are better, and we think we are worse. The problem is not with the reality. The problem is with our thinking. It's a trap in a way. One of the worst kinds of arrogance is spiritual arrogance. Just by belonging to a particular religion or even spiritual path or even non-spiritual, atheistic path, we may think that we are better than others. We may make fun of them or judge those on a different path. We may think that my way is the best way, the only way, the true way, and our ego will feel very good. We may put others down because of this. We may look down upon them and see ourselves as so much better. I'm so smart, I know. The truth is that pride precedes a fall. Our arrogance kills our spiritual growth. We can only advance spiritually when there is humility. Christ said, "The greatest amongst you shall be the least, and the servant to all." Chaitanya said, one should think of oneself as lower than a blade of grass. What happens to a blade of grass? Everybody walks all over it. In today's time, we're told, oh no, you shouldn't let people walk all over you. It's considered a bad thing. It is a bad thing, but it's bad for the ego. But if you were in the process of annihilating the ego consciously, if you were in the process of cultivating humility consciously, then it might not be such a bad thing at all. Our ego is what creates these false identities of better or worse. And only when we give up identifying with the false ego can we begin our real spiritual journey. You see, that which lies behind this body, this mind, this ego, is the soul. It's the real force behind who we are. It is who we are. And one who is spiritually advanced sees this essence, this soul, and looks past the masks that we cover ourselves with. Such a person knows that we are all the same at the core. No one is better or worse, greater or smaller. We're all suffering. We're all in the same boat. We're all flawed. We're all part of God, and we are all loved unlimitedly by God. So today we're going to explore a few different examples of this in the Bhagavatam, and we're going to try to dive deeper into understanding this a lot more. So I'm going to go over about 2 or 3 different stories today. Stories that are histories, narratives from the Bhagavatam. The first is about Manu. Manu is the Vaivasvat Manu, the Manu for this age, particularly the progenitors of mankind. So I'm just going to get into the story here, and I won't go into those details. Manu wanted a son. So he performed, this is of course hundreds of thousands of years ago, he performed a yajna, a sacrifice. And his wife told the priest that she wanted a daughter. Now, there were mixed messages. A daughter was born, and Manu was unhappy. He approached his guru, Vasishta, and discovered what had happened. Vasishta then called on Vishnu, the Supreme Being, and the daughter, Ila, was transformed into a boy, Sudyumna. Now, you know how it is these days, we hear so much about gender roles and gender identities, and people get caught up with these things. The reality in spiritual life is that we are neither male nor female. We're spiritual beings. We are souls in a body that might be male or female, and you can identify with that body in whichever way. You may think that because you're in a male body, you feel like a female. Sure, that can happen. But you might have never asked the question, why do you think you're female? Is it possible that you have a memory of an earlier lifetime in which you were female? But now you're in a male body, and somehow that remembrance seems to be sticking with you. It's not supposed to, but there's a bit of leakage happening, a little bit of, spillover happening, where you're starting to think that maybe you're still female and you're in this weird male body. Or you might be female and you might be thinking, I'm male. Of course, some people bring this down to male and female energies, and however you want to think about it. The point is, we are spiritual beings. We are neither male nor female. We have been in male bodies thousands of times and female bodies thousands of times. And now we might be a little confused about which one we are. But my point to you is this: we are neither male nor female, nor are we some combination of both. We're pure spiritual beings. And it's that spirit spark that comes into the body and brings it alive, just as electricity comes into a light bulb and the light bulb lights up. You can put a pink light bulb there, or a green light bulb, a white light bulb, whatever you want, right? But it's only a light bulb. And the electricity is what makes that light bulb light up, because without that electricity, that light bulb is meaningless. Similarly, this body is meaningless without the presence of that spiritual spark. That's who we are. And you can put any mask on that. That's fine. Any clothes you like, any, different ages, we look different. Yeah, we look different at every different stage of our life. In our youth, in our adolescence, in our old age, middle age, we look different. Because this body is constantly changing. This body is not who we are. And that's the beginning of spiritual life, is to understand that. I am not my body. I'm not my mind. I'm not my thoughts. I'm not my emotions. I'm not my story. Anyways, the Prince Pradyumna grew to be a handsome man. So now, instead of being a girl, he's a boy, right? And grows up to be a handsome man. And once when he's out in the forest hunting, he'd worn his armor and was carrying bows and arrows, and while following the animals, he reached the northern part of the forest at the bottom of Mount Meru. He did not know that in this part of the forest, Shiva enjoyed with his wife Uma, Parvati. When the prince entered this forest, he, along with his accomplices, were immediately transformed into women, and their horses into mares. They were all bewildered and wondered, what has happened? Oh my gosh. The backstory to this forest was that once some great renowned saintly person had come to the forest to see Shiva. At that point, goddess Uma, or also known as Ambika, also known as Parvati, was naked and sitting on Shiva's lap. Now keep in mind, Shiva is a highly evolved being, way beyond any other mortal. Shiva is immortal. Now, in an embarrassment to cover herself up, because they were saintly persons and they're renounced and they're not comfortable with such things, in that embarrassment, as she covered herself up, the saintly persons went away. Shiva then promised his wife that any male who entered that forest would immediately become female. You and I can't make such promises to our partners, but Shiva could. Sudyumna, now this prince who had entered, was transformed into the best of beautiful women who could excite sexual desire. And now, because of all the other friends that had come along, male friends that had also been transformed into women, they had a whole bunch of beautiful women walking around there. When Buddha, the son of Chandra, the sun moon god, saw her, he desired her. And together they had a son, because she desired him too. This person, earlier male, Sudyumna, then approached Guru Vasishta because he was supposed to become the king, and how's this going to work? So Vasishta then worshipped Shiva to reverse this condition, and Shiva unfortunately had to keep his word to his wife, like how it is in our homes as well. We can't displease our wife, especially if we've given our word. In today's time, that might be a rare thing. People don't keep their word. They say they're going to be faithful and love someone forever and ever after, and then they take off with somebody else or break up and create a divorce. But the Vedic period that we're talking about here was a time when people kept their word. They were very true to their word. So Shiva had kept his word and wanted to keep his word to his wife, and so he declared and tried to find a compromise with her and with the prince, Sudyumna. And this is what they arrived at. Sudyumna may remain a male for 1 month and a female for the next. And it would go back and forth. Male 1 month, female the next. Sudyumna thus regained the endless desired maleness every alternate month and ruled the kingdom. He had 3 more sons, and when he was old, he retired to the forest for spiritual austerities. It's kind of how they did it at that time. When someone got older, they didn't go to an old age home. They didn't go and try to live it up on a cruise ship. No, they retired to the forest or a holy place and tried to devote themselves 100% to God. So I just found these really interesting short little narratives before we come to the main one. I'll come to that in just a moment. There's another very interesting one in which another son of Manu, Sharyati, had a beautiful daughter, Sukanya. And once he went to the forest, to the ashram of Syavana Muni. So there's a great sage, right? Older person, wise, like that. So the king had come to this sage's residence, his ashram in the forest, and he brought along his daughter. The young girl and her friends were collecting fruits when the daughter Sukanya saw within the hole of an earthworm 2 tiny glowing like illuminaries. She saw 2 glowing things within that. And strangely, as if induced by providence, the girl ignorantly pierced those 2 glowworms with a thorn, and blood began to ooze out of them. Thereafter, all the soldiers of the king became unable to pass stool or urine. They understood that someone had done something wrong. The daughter confessed what she had done, and the king found out that the luminary inside that hole was none other than the sage Syavana. To get the forgiveness of the sage, King Saryati offered his daughter in marriage to him. Syavana Muni was very old. He was diseased, he was invalid, he had loose skin, white hair, and veins visible all over his body. He was also very irritable. But now that they were married, Sukanya, the young princess, had to deal with him carefully according to his mood. Sometime later, the 2 Ashwini Kumar brothers, the heavenly physicians, happened to come along to Syavana Muni's ashram. The sage had a request for them. He said, I know that you can do all kinds of transformations. I would like to have beauty and youth because they are attractive to young women. And my wife is a young woman. I feel it's so unfair that she has to put up with me in this age. I would like to be youthful and beautiful so as to be able to please my wife. He then promised in turn to get the two Ashwini Kumars a pot full of somras. Somras was this incredible intoxicant. Like, think of the finest of wines or the finest of alcohol of any kind, but even way beyond anything you have on this earthly plane. This was a heavenly intoxicant. But the Ashwini Kumars were not eligible to get it, to receive it, because they were physicians. In any case, he said, look, I'll figure it out. I'll get it done for you. You just do this for me. So the physicians of the demigods, the Ashwini Kumars, agreed, and along with the sage, they entered it was called the Lake of Successful Life. One who bathes in this lake has his desires fulfilled. All three of them entered the lake and emerged with very beautiful bodily features. They were nicely dressed and decorated with jewels and earrings and garlands of lotuses. They looked the same. And Sukanya, the young bride, couldn't discern them apart. And so she had to beg of the Ashwini Kumars, the physicians, to help her know which one of them was her husband. They were very pleased with her faithfulness and showed her husband and returned in their plane to the heavenly planets. So you'll notice many unusual things. They have a plane. They're able to create the equivalent of a plastic surgery, right? There's some pretty amazing technology at work out here. I don't think it's just magic. Sometime later, when King Sharyati, the girl's father, came by, he got very upset with her, thinking she had deserted her highly respected, saintly old husband and shamelessly taken a paramour. When the king learned the truth, he was very amazed, and in great pleasure he embraced his daughter. Syavan Muni, the great sage, then performed the Som Yagya and offered a full pot of Somras to the Ashwini Kumars. The Ashwini Kumars, being physicians, were not supposed to drink Somras. You know how it is when a doctor drinks alcohol, he isn't as stable, isn't as together, can't do an operation, can't do the things they're supposed to be doing to help others. So that's why they'd been forbidden. However, when Indra found this out, he was very mad at Syavan Muni. Why did you give them this? They were not supposed to get this Somras. And he tried to kill him with his thunderbolt. But by his powers, the great sage paralyzed Indra's arm. Indra then relented, and the Ashwini Kumars were henceforth allowed to drink Somras. All right, with that we come to our most important narrative for the day. And this is the story of Ambarish. And here we're going to talk about arrogance. This is all about humility and all about arrogance. So there was a king called Nabhaga. I'm not going to read his story today. I'm just going to focus on the main one here. Nabhaga was a king, and he had a son named Ambarish, who was a great devotee of Vishnu. This Ambarish went on to rule the entire world, consisting of 7 islands. It's interesting that they say that, 7 islands. We believe, and we know now, there are 7 continents. But apparently at that time, thousands of years, tens of thousands of years ago, they knew it too. We think that Christopher Columbus is the one who came across and discovered America. But the people at that time were very clear about the 7 islands. They knew exactly what the earth was like. So he conquered the entire world consisting of 7 islands and achieved inexhaustible, unlimited opulence, material opulence. However, King Ambarish didn't care for material opulence. He knew it to be like that which is imagined in a dream. Such opulence would ultimately be destroyed. Meaning, just as we wake up from a dream, and you might think in that dream you are either poor or rich or whatever, when you wake up, you realize, oh, it was just a dream. So similarly, material opulence, he understood very clearly, will be lost in time. It will be just like a dream. When we leave our body, when our soul leaves, then everything that happened during this life, which we took so seriously, which caused us so much anxiety, which caused us so much grief, which caused us so much happiness, which caused us so much sorrow, is this like a dream? For the soul who has now left that body, everything that happened was just like a dream. None of it is real anymore. Think about it. What would it be like if you left your body? Like died, right? Then what would be the value of all the things you had? All of it would be like a dream. And Ambarish was concerned because he had seen that people who attain such opulence very easily merge into the mode of darkness, that it contaminates them, that it affects them. They become proud, they become arrogant, vain, all of that. So because of that, he did something different. Due to his devotion to Vasudeva or Vishnu, Krishna, the Supreme Being, to God, as some will say here, he thought of the entire universe as being as insignificant as a piece of stone. Meaning he thought of all his possessions, his palaces, the gold that he had, the unlimited wealth and riches that he had, as being as insignificant as a piece of stone. Instead of being caught up in his wealth, he engaged his mind in meditating upon the lotus feet of the divine, which we refer to as Krishna. Krishna means the all-attractive one, the Supreme Being. Not someone who's an old man sitting in the clouds, but rather a beautiful, adorable, lovable being, Krishna. So he engaged his mind in meditating upon the feet of Krishna. See how he's going to use all his senses and all his faculties. His words he used in describing the glories of Krishna, his hands in cleaning Krishna's temple, his ears in hearing about Krishna, his eyes in seeing the deity of Krishna, his sense of touch in touching the feet of pure devotees of Krishna, his sense of smell in smelling the fragrance of flowers offered to Krishna, his tongue in tasting food offered to Krishna, prasad. He engaged his legs in walking to holy places and temples of Krishna. His head in bowing down before Krishna, and all his desires in serving Krishna 24 hours a day. Indeed, King Ambarish never desired anything for his own sense gratification. He engaged all his senses in devotional service, in various engagements related to Krishna, to the Supreme Being. In this way, he increased his attachment for Krishna and became completely free from all material desires. There's so much we can learn here. So much that is powerful in this message. You see, you cannot give up desire. You cannot give up desire. Let's be very clear about this. You can try all you want, but you cannot give it up. So what to do? The way out is very interesting. Is to channel your desires in a different direction. It's like, imagine when you fell in love with one person, right? And things didn't work out and you got a divorce or whatever else and you broke up. And then you channel your desires to another person, and now suddenly the desire for that first person is no longer there. So you've changed the object of desire. You've changed the focus of your desire. In much the same way, when you change the focus of desire from matter to spirit, from the world to the divine or God, then you're able to overcome material desire. It's a question of desiring as much the divine as you do the world, or more, much more. And how would you have that desire? Only by knowing the attractiveness of that divine being. You see, how do you get more in love with someone? How do you become attracted more to someone? How do you fall in love more? That's the puzzle that everyone struggled with, right? In relationships and relationship therapies and all of that. the way you fall in love more and more and more with someone is by getting to know them more and more. And the more deeply you get to know them, one of two things is going to happen. Either your getting to know them will make you dislike them, right? Because how's that saying where familiarity breeds contempt, right? So either it'll go in that direction, or if you can steer away from that, if you can actually begin to admire them with their flaws, with their weaknesses. Like if you expect them to be perfect, you're definitely going to land up in the in the halls of contempt. And that contempt will destroy any and all relationships. So pretty much when people get to know each other well, that's where they land up. But if you can stay away from judging your partner, if you can stay away from judging your friends, if you can just continue to focus on that which is best in them, then your attraction will grow. Your attraction will get deeper. Your attraction will become sweeter. It will become more delicious, more like honey. It will draw you in more and more and more. And the same applies to God. The more you hear about, the more you understand, the more you begin to fall in love with God. Now, it's not about just hearing some stories here. This is about really relishing. And that comes by chanting the names of God, by hearing the pastimes of God, by getting to know God deeply. I know that in most religions and most spirituality, there is no such knowledge. But in the Vedic literature, you will find extensive knowledge. In fact, we're now on the 9th canto. We started that today, the 9th canto of the Bhagavatam. We've done about 70 or some episodes of the Bhagavatam. And we're approaching the 10th canto. And in the 10th canto, we're going to be talking about the Leela, the pastimes of Krishna, the divine, the supreme being, the supreme Godhead who incarnated within this world to attract us. And the more we become attracted to that divine being, to that source of everything, to that ultimate reality or God, the less we are attracted to the world. That's how it follows. So our attraction must shift, and then our desire will shift. Let's continue with Ambarish. Ambarish, the great king, who was a devotee of Vishnu, always offered the results of his royal activities to the supreme Godhead Krishna, who is the enjoyer of everything and is beyond the perception of material senses. So these are, again, very important points here. The enjoyer of everything. We want to be the enjoyer of everything. I want to have a great meal. I want to enjoy my senses. I want to be the enjoyer of everything. But am I? Can I? For how long? I can only enjoy to a point. I can eat a meal, but I can eat to a point, then I'm stuffed. I can enjoy sex to a point, but then I'm spent. That's it. There's no more. I have that much energy. I can engage in any amount of sense gratification, but most of it will have, it's sort of got diminishing returns. So if I, for example, eat a lot of sweet things, then my body starts to get sick. If you drink a lot, that your body's going to get sick. The more you have, the more the returns of what you're getting become worse. You take a lot of drugs or alcohol or whatever, again, diminishing returns. In fact, you start getting more pain than the pleasure you're getting. But in spiritual life, it works the other way around. The more you get, the more you enjoy. And there is no hangover. There is no side effect. There is no negative side to it at all. You can get as addicted as you like to spirituality, and you will lose nothing. To genuine spirituality, I mean, like what we're talking about here. So the real enjoyer of everything is the one who created everything. And that which created everything, or God, created it for his and her enjoyment. We can enjoy, but as long as we are in connection with that source. If we are not in connection, like if someone comes to your house who you've not, told them to use your whatever, your certain special thing in the house, right? You might have this very special TV somewhere, or you might have this very special something, And you don't want them to use your bed and you don't want them to use your personal things unless they ask you. And if it's okay with you, you can say, sure. So similarly, we are in the house, this body that God built and the world that God built. And we need to be in connection with our host. We are guests here. And when we are in connection, in relationship with that divine source or God, then everything is here for us to enjoy. But now we are doing it not from a place of taking away or stealing or claiming that this is mine. It's like a guest who comes to your house and says, no, I like that thing you've got there. It's mine. I'm taking it with me, No, it doesn't work like that. He is the owner, the proprietor, the possessor of everything, and everything is there for his enjoyment. So therefore, everything we have and everything we do it as an offering to the divine. We first offer it to him. This is yours. This is your house. This is your TV. This is your bed. This is your body. This is your everything. I offer myself completely and everything I have to you. So that's what it means. Krishna, who is the enjoyer of everything and is beyond the perception of material senses. A lot of people say, well, show me God, then I'll believe. Really? Well, show me infrared rays, then I'll believe they exist. Show me the Big Bang, then I'll believe it happened. Show me an atom. You might be able to go to a lab somewhere, but to go to that lab, I have to go to a lab. I have to then follow whatever procedure you tell me, look through this microscope or whatever they might have out there, and then I can see maybe that atom or particle, photon or whatever else. Similarly, in spiritual life, there is a lab and there is an experiment and there is a procedure. You can't just say, show me. No, there's a process by which you will understand. Even the best of scientists cannot just show you an atom, right? You've got to follow the procedure he's going to take you through so that you may see it. Similarly, the Guru instructs you that there is a procedure by which you can purify your senses, you can purify your heart, you can purify your mind, remove all the obstacles in it which are preventing you from being able to see the ultimate reality, the absolute truth, or God. So he is beyond the perception of material senses, but there are within us the ability to have that darshan, to have that vision of the divine, of God. Many have had that experience, but most people don't. Right? Ambarish then took advice from the Brahmins, the priests, who were faithful devotees of Krishna, and thus ruled the planet without difficulty. So he's now working in accordance, in harmony with the divine, not independently. Those who are saturated with the transcendental happiness of rendering service to the Supreme Godhead are uninterested even in the achievements of great mystics. For such achievements do not enhance the transcendental bliss felt by a devotee who always thinks of Krishna within the core of his heart. In other words, they're talking about how great mystics experience tremendous ecstasy, tremendous sense of ananda, which actually comes from peace, a bliss that comes from peace. But it is nothing in comparison to the ecstasy that a lover of God experiences. That ecstasy, that bhav, has many different layers. There is an entire science which you'll find in a book called The Nectar of Instruction by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. You'll find it in there. And it talks about the science of this spiritual path. And within that, you'll see there are different stages of that ecstasy. And one who has experienced that, for them, the bliss of impersonal merging into the divine is like nothing. It's like not even like a drop of water. When you're thirsty and somebody gives you a drop of water, it's nothing. So this only can be talked, it's not a matter of opinion, it's a matter of experience. Those who have experienced it say so. In time, Ambarish gave up attachment to all household affairs, family wealth, and palaces, regarding them as temporary and material. being very pleased by the unalloyed devotion. It's an interesting word, unalloyed. Have you noticed that when you have, let's say, gold jewelry, right? It comes in different types. There's 24 karat, which is pure. That's what's unalloyed. And then there's 14 karat, which is mixed, 50% gold and 50%, I'm not sure if they use copper or brass or some other metal, right? And then if you have 10 karat gold, that's even less, more of the alloy and less of the gold, and so on. But pure gold, unalloyed gold, is 24 karat gold. So in this same way, unalloyed devotion to God means that there's no agenda. I don't want anything out of God. I'm not here praying, God, give me this, give me that. No, no, no. That is when you're all mixed, right? I want God, but I also want this world. I also want, to be able to enjoy everything. I also have all my desires. And of course, we're all like that in the start. And it gets less over time as we walk on this path. But Ambarish was an unalloyed devotee. So as he gradually became more and more detached from the household affairs and family wealth and palaces, regarding them as temporary and material, his devotion became more and more unalloyed. Being very pleased with his devotion, the Supreme Godhead Vishnu gave the king his disc, which is fearful to enemies, which always protects the devotee from enemies and adversities. So just to give you an idea of what this disc is, take a look at your screen, just in case you've not been looking. Take a look at your screen right now, and you'll see this is Vishnu. And you'll see on his, well, I'm not sure if it's left or right for you, but right there under where it says Sudarshan, you'll see there's a disc. There's a spinning disc. And that disc is called his Sudarshan. Sudarshan, right? It's a very powerful weapon that Vishnu uses in extreme situations when there is some adversary, some demonic force, etc., that needs to be dealt with. Now, he gave his Sudarshan, imagine this, to Ambarish, the king. Why did he do this? I think he knew something was about to happen. So, once when King Ambarish and his queen had observed the vow of Ekadashi and Dwadashi for 1 year, they'd been fasting for 3 nights and bathing in the Yamuna. After bath and decorating the deity of Krishna, they gave charity to the Brahmins and were about to observe the end of their fast when Durvasa, the great and powerful mystic, appeared on the scene as an uninvited guest. So Durvasa is very famous in most of the Vedic literature for his great temper. Anyway, so he walked in, very powerful mystic, very powerful sage, right? And the king received the sage with great honor, and after seating him, sat at his feet. This is the culture of the Vedic era, that even the king would sit at the feet of a great sage. Ambarish then asked Durvasa to eat. And that is the culture even in India now. Your guest eats first, not you. So he asked Durvasa to eat, but the sage insisted that he would go and bathe in the river Yamuna first. Now Durvasa took his own sweet time. After bathing, he sat down to meditate. Now in the meantime, the time for breaking the fast, the muhurat as it's called, the time for breaking the fast for the king was coming to an end. The king didn't know what to do now. He started, panicking. So he asked the Brahmins, the priests who were there, and they advised him that he could drink water, because drinking water may be accepted as eating, but also as not eating. In this way, he could not eat before his guest Durvasa returned from the river. Sort of like this in-between thing, right? And Durvasa, on the other hand, continued. He took it easy, performed ritualistic ceremonies at the river, performed at noon, and then he returned. When he got back, he immediately understood that the king had drunk water without his permission. Durvasa Muni, his body trembling, his face curved, and his eyebrows crooked in frown, angrily spoke to the king, who stood before him with folded hands. I'll show you a little scene of that first. And then Durvasa said,
Alas, just see the behavior of this cruel man. He is not a devotee of Vishnu. Being proud of his material opulence and his position, he considers himself God. Just see how he has transgressed the laws of religion. King Ambarish, you have invited me to eat as a guest, but instead of feeding me, you have yourself eaten first. Because of your misbehavior, I shall show you something to punish you.
as Durvasa said this, his face became red with anger. Uprooting a bunch of hair from his head, he created a demon resembling the blazing fire of devastation to punish King Ambarish. So that's what you saw in this picture. Let's go back to it again. It'll make more sense now. With trident in hand and making the surface of the earth tremble with his footsteps, that blazing creature, that demon, came before King Ambarish. But the king, upon seeing him, was not at all disturbed and did not even slightly move from his position. He just stood there with folded hands, fearless. At that moment, Vishnu's Sudarshan Chakra, which he had given to the king, immediately spun into action and burned to ashes the created demon to protect the devotee. As the blazing fires of a forest pursue a snake, the disk of the Supreme Godhead began following Durvasa Muni, the sage, who became terrified and began to run in all directions, in the sky, on the surface of the earth. So this guy is a great sage, a mystic. He can go, he can fly, he can do whatever. So he began to fly into the sky and the surface of the earth, in caves, in the ocean. He went into the ocean, and then he went from there to different planets. But wherever he went, he immediately saw following him, behind him, the unbearable fire of the Sudarshan Chakra. Here's an image of that. He then approached Brahma, but Brahma, the creator, could not help him. Durvasa then went to Shiva. Shiva said, "My dear son, I, Brahma, and the other demigods who rotate within this universe under the misconception of our greatness have no power to compete with the Supreme Godhead, for innumerable universes and their inhabitants come into existence and are annihilated by his direction. Go to Vishnu. He will certainly be kind enough to bestow all good fortune upon you." So Vishnu is that Supreme Godhead that Shiva is talking about. Durvasa then went out of this material world into the spiritual world, Vaikuntha, where Narayan or Vishnu resides. He fell at his lotus feet and begged him. So this is when he comes to Brahma. That's Brahma there. And this is Shiva. He goes to Shiva. That doesn't work. Now he's come to Vishnu. And that's Lakshmi and Vishnu, and that's Durvasa there, falling at their feet, begging, "Please save me from this Sudarshan Chakra, this Sudarshan disc of yours." "O infallible, unlimited Lord," Durvasa says, "protector of the entire universe, you are the only desirable object for all devotees. I am a great offender. Please give me protection. O Supreme Controller, without knowledge of your unlimited prowess, I have offended your most dear devotee. Kindly save me from the reaction of this offense." It's important to note here that Durvasa was arrogant with his tremendous spiritual advancement that he had made, being a mystic, being a sage, being a powerful yogi. He was very proud of his achievement. And that's what I started this off with, is about spiritual arrogance. And this is what led to this situation now. That because he had the same kind of egoic response that people have when their egos are offended. Right? So even though he had attained great mysticism, he hadn't overcome his ego. And that is why that is the final, ultimate trap. So now the Supreme Godhead, Narayan or Vishnu, said, I am completely under the control of my devotees. I am not at all independent. Because my devotees are completely devoid of material desires, I sit only within the core of their heart. What to speak of my devotee? Even those who are devotees of my devotee are very dear to me. They give up everything to serve me. How can I give them up at any time? Then he gives an example, as chaste women bring their gentle husbands under control by service. My pure devotees who are equal to everyone, equanimous meaning equal to everyone, and completely attached to me in the core of their heart, they bring me under their full control. It's very important to understand this. Mother Yashoda, Krishna's mother, ties him up with ropes. He is bound by the love of his devotee. He lets her do that. And in many ways, he shows this example that nothing can bind him. He is independent of everything, and yet he is bound by love. Love is the most powerful force in the universe. Vishnu then continues. He says, the pure devotee is always within the core of my heart, and I am always in their heart. My devotees do not know anything else but me, and I do not know anything else but them. O Durvasa, O great Brahmin, let me now advise you for your own protection. By offending King Ambarish, you have acted with self-envy. Therefore, you should go to him immediately. One's so-called prowess, when employed against the devotee, certainly harms he who employs it. Thus, it is the subject, not the object, who is harmed. It's very important to understand this. When you offend a devotee of the divine, of the Supreme Being, of God, the person who is harmed is you and not that person. They are under the shelter of the divine. They will not be harmed. But your criticizing them, judging them, demeaning them, putting them down, will only backfire like boomerang back onto you. Therefore, Chaitanya calls it the mad elephant offense. He says any other offense can be forgiven, but the insult or the diminishing of or the judgment of a pure devotee cannot be forgiven, not even by God, as you will see here. Even Vishnu saying, I can't do anything. Go back to Ambarish, the king, who you have offended, who you have insulted, who you have said such horrible and mean things to. Go back to him immediately. One's so-called prowess, when employed against the devotee, you may be a very powerful rishi, you may be a powerful yogi, you may be a powerful mystic, but your so-called prowess, when employed against the devotee, certainly harms he who employs it, meaning yourself. Thus it is the subject, not the object, who is harmed. For a Brahmin, austerity and learning, Brahmins are the priests, austerity and learning are certainly auspicious. But when acquired by a person who is not gentle, such austerity and learning are most dangerous. I wish you all good fortune. If you can satisfy King Ambarish, then there will be peace for you. So keep in mind, by a person who is not gentle, a lot of times people misunderstand gentleness, sweetness, kindness. They take it as weakness. But in fact, gentleness, if understood deeply and coming from a place of spiritual growth, that kind of gentleness, that kind of sweetness that arises as you grow spiritually, that kind of compassion, that kind of kindness, is a superpower and not a weakness. It's not understood in the world, it's not appreciated, but it is the quality by which you know you are advancing spiritually. Your ego is diminished, your anger is diminished, your desire to have things, your attachments are diminished, and instead you become more gentle, more kind, more sweet, more tender, more compassionate. All right, so what happens next? Durvasa then immediately returned to King Ambarish and fell down at his feet and begged for mercy. You'll see it in this picture here. Pull it up. So you'll see Durvasa lying at the feet of the king Ambarish, and the Sudarshan Chakra there at a distance chasing after him. So he begged for mercy. The king was embarrassed. What are you doing? Oh, great sage, you're bowing at my feet. No, I should be bowing at your feet. What are you doing here? He then prayed, the king then prayed to the Sudarshan Chakra of Vishnu, this weapon of Vishnu, and said, O protector of the universe, telling Sudarshan Chakra, you are engaged by the Supreme Personality of Godhead as his all-powerful weapon in killing the envious demons. For the benefit of our entire dynasty, kindly favor this poor Brahmin, this poor priest, this sage. This will certainly be a favor for all of us. Vishnu's disk then became peaceful and stopped burning Durvasa. The sage then praised the qualities of King Ambarish and offered him the highest benedictions. Durvasa said, My dear king, today I have experienced the greatness of devotees of the Supreme Godhead. For although I have committed an offense, you have prayed for my good fortune. For those who have achieved the Supreme Godhead, the master of the pure devotees, what is impossible to do and what is impossible to give up? So now here is this mystic praising a devotee, someone who has devoted their life to the Supreme Being. He says, what is impossible for such a person to do and what is impossible for them to give up? What is impossible for the servants of the Lord? By the very hearing of his holy name, one is purified. O king, overlooking my offenses, you have saved my life. Thus I am very much obliged to you because you are so merciful. Now the king is really interesting because he was expecting the return of Durvasa. He hadn't eaten any food. How much time did it take for this entire journey Durvasa took through all these different planets and everything? 1 year. So for 1 year, King Ambarish maintained himself by drinking water. He didn't eat. The king now fell at the sage's feet, pleased him in all respects, and fed him sumptuously. After eating varieties of palatable food, Durvasa was so satisfied that with great satisfaction he requested the king to eat also, saying, Please take your meal. Durvasa said, I am very pleased with you, dear king. At first I thought of you as an ordinary human being and accepted your hospitality. But later I could understand that you are the most exalted devotee of Vishnu. Therefore, simply by seeing you, touching your feet, and talking with you, I have been pleased and have become obliged to you. People all over the universe will chant your glories continuously. Durvasa then took permission and left, continually glorifying the king. King Ambarish then divided his property among his sons and went to the forest to concentrate his mind upon Vasudeva, Vishnu, Krishna. Anyone who chants this narration or even thinks of this narration about the activities of King Ambarish certainly becomes a pure devotee of the Supreme Godhead. By the grace of God, those who hear about the activities of King Ambarish certainly become liberated or become devotees without delay. All right, so with that, we're going to end today's Bhagavatam. I'd love to hear your questions. If you've been writing them down, or if you haven't, please do now. You can write them in the comments and I'll be able to read it here, whether you're on Instagram. And now we have a lot of folks joining us on Instagram. Please do write your comments or questions or anything you're thinking about. All right, let me see. All right, we've got one from Cindy here. She says, humility, once well practiced, she places their first step on the path of grace. Absolutely, Cindy. When there is humility, see, this is on the path of devotion, humility is the key, because that's what annihilates the ego. As long as the ego is there, the false notions of who we are will remain. And you'll know that by your defenses that will come up. When someone insults you, when someone does something that you don't like or you don't think they should, when someone behaves in a way that is disagreeable to you and you become upset, that's your ego acting up. You should not do this. You should not have behaved like, you should not have said this, you should not have done this. It's there to defend you, no doubt. And there are some things people certainly shouldn't do, maybe hit you or, come on in inappropriate ways with you. But for the most part, the majority of things, I would say it's not needed. If someone does insult you and you thank them for showing you where your flaws are, because now you can work on them. Those are your anarthas, your flaws. And those flaws, when you purify them, rather than hide behind masks and pretend you're so great, if you can see your flaws and someone can help you see them, they've done you a favor. So thank them. They'll be surprised. They will be quite taken aback because people don't respond in that way. And so it is that we need to practice humility day to day, moment to moment. It's okay to see your flaws, but don't get caught up in that. Neither your flaws nor your strengths are your identity. Neither your defects or your mistakes or your misdeeds define you. None of it defines you. What you want to do is you want to be able to take them and clear them out. I am not this, I am not that. I am not neither my flaws nor my strengths. I'm neither my aging skin nor the beautiful skin that I once had. I am not my intellect nor the loss of intellect that I now experience as time goes by. I am not any of this. Who am I? That's the question that you need to keep on asking. Who am I? If I take away all these things that I try to protect and try to hold on to, whether it's material possessions or whether it's my intellect or it's my abilities or my talents or what people think of me or how good I am, take away all that. Take away the goodness too. Take away the badness too. Don't be defined. Become undefined as much as possible. That's our goal. I'm not saying it's going to happen overnight, but it is what we need to aim for. And as we start moving more and more in that direction, we start to notice that we become more peaceful. This is a direct corollary. It's not like it's some, fancy thing that you just want to aspire to, that, people will think what a great person you are. No, that ego's back in again. So, yeah. And let me see if there's any further questions. Oh, yeah. The supreme weapon of Vishnu, which no one has ever been able to destroy or stop, right? And in this case, Durvasa had to apologize before the king. So often it happens when someone offends us, we get so upset, we get so angry, don't we? Have you ever been angry like that? When have you not? Right? We're all guilty of this. And it's important to learn from this story about arrogance, about pride, and especially spiritual arrogance. I think it's a huge learning and a huge lesson for us to have. My way is not better than your way. My path is not better than your path. No matter how much I have done spiritually, I have not become better than you. I am the same stupid fool who started on this journey. I am the same person who knew nothing. I still know nothing. I still am full of flaws. I still am full of all kinds of anarthas or impurities. And my only hope is for them to become purified. I can see and feel that as I walk this path, those qualities, those impurities start to move away. Some still remain, they're stubborn. But others start moving out. And in their place comes a deeper sense of peace, comes a deeper trust in the divine, a deeper trust in God. And that is what keeps giving you the evidence that you're growing. It's not something imaginary. It's not something, that you're just pretending and just kind of like going along and just kind of doing the rituals. But it's something very scientific. As you do it, you see the result. As you persevere on this path, you see the doors opening to your own spiritual advancement. So apply these lessons. They're very powerful. And a couple of notes here. Next week, I won't be able to be here. I'm traveling. And so please excuse me. Next Tuesday, that is the 13th of February, there will be no Bhagavatam. I will see you the week after. So please, and your emails, I hope you'll pay attention to that, and there'll be reminders there. And then the other thing is, I'd like to request all of you if we could start at 6 p.m. Pacific or 9 p.m. Eastern, because that would be a great help for me. It's pretty late for now that I've moved from California to the East Coast. It's 10 o'clock when we start and 11 by the time we end. So just let me know in the comments if that's okay with you, those of you that are attending live. And in India, of course, it's 8:30 a.m. Right now, these days, the way we're doing it, but it would be 7:30. So I hope that'll be okay with you, and I'll see you in a couple of weeks. Hare Krishna.